a world where we have everything and it's still not enough, we're often left wondering, is this really it?
Deep inside, you know there's more to life. You're ready to leave behind the old push your way through and claim the deeper, more meaningful life that's calling you.
That's what we invite you to explore with us.
We're your hosts,
Stephanie Allen
and Maren. And this is the Soulful Leader Podcast.
Yay! 'Twas the night before Christmas, and this was the podcast. Hi, welcome. This is Stephanie, and I'm here with Maren, and we are the Soulful Leader Podcast. And today, of course, we are just on the edge of that Christmas season, and I know everybody's, well, I don't know if I know if everybody is, but I know myself personally, around me, there's this buzz of energy of trying to make sure they get everything done before Christmas. And that saying is like, oh, are you ready for Christmas yet? Or are you ready for the holidays yet? Just about makes me crazy sometimes. And I'm like,
especially because it starts in like June now.
Oh,
it really feels like that.
No. And I don't want to be a bah humbug about it. As you can see from my glasses, if you're watching the video, but it's like, I think it's such a beautiful time. And sometimes it gets clouded with, we miss the reason for the season, that kind of saying, that kind of colloquial saying. But I just keep reflecting on presence. And, you know, something I often did with my niece and nephew. I only have one niece and one nephew. I love them absolutely dearly. And growing up, I remember looking back on the presents that I've been given, whether they're birthday presents or, you know, Christmas presents. And I don't really remember the presents, to be honest with you, but I remember the memories of what touched my heart. And as a person myself, I want to be able to bestow that on my loved ones. I want to build memories, good memories. And so something I often would always try to do with my niece and nephew would give them experiences, little things that we got to do together. So we had presence, not so much the ENTS type, but that they would have memories and they would grow as human beings. And I'm really touched by that. And I also struggle personally because I still come up with, oh my gosh, I don't have a present for so-and-so, or I don't have, and sometimes I feel the pressure of the consumerism to get more and to give more in the way of materialism. And I have to completely turn inward all the time and say, wait a minute, what is most important? So I'm really curious, like, you know, how you all are doing out there in the way of like, how are you unfolding the reason and the season and all those different things? And it can be a really hard time for so many, especially if there isn't anyone in your life or people have passed. And, you know, it can bring up both a lot of mixed emotions, can it?
Well, you've opened a lot of cans in a short amount of time. So let's talk about each of those kind of individually.
All right.
The first one I was thinking about when you were, you know, kind of introducing it of, are you ready for the holidays? And it's not just Christmas. It's any of the holidays throughout the year. Really, we make it about the outward, and not everybody. And in general, society has made it about the outward. Are you decorated? Do you have the presents is everything wrapped? Is everything perfect? And I think that does a lot of harm. And one of the things that you mentioned is, how is everyone doing out there? There can be a lot of inner angst around all of that. You said you felt it yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're all about awareness, you and I, and we still feel it, even at that point of like, okay, I'm more aware. I do think about the presence, like ENCE versus ENTS. And what is that? So if we are more aware, if we can stop for a moment and become aware of the fact that most of the external is consumerism. It's because somebody wants to sell us something, because there's an expectation that's been built. And what might it look different? How might it look different? Mm-hmm. If I look at, am I prepared internally for the holiday? And I know most of you are probably listening to this and it's like, it's in the 11th hour. Either your holiday has already passed or it's about to pass. And we do have the new year coming up. So it's not just this holiday, it's any holiday of like, what
Mhm.
does it mean to be prepared on an internal level?
Well, and I think you're bringing up something, and when I think of the internal level, I think what it really touches within me is like, am I enough?
Mm,
Am I enough? Am
that's
I
huge.
giving enough? Am I being present enough? Am I loving enough? Am I too much, too little, just right? Like it really brings that up. And even though I can talk to myself
Hmm.
internally and say, yes, I know I'm enough, there's this wave from the external that says, no, you're not.
Right.
No, you're not. And it's like you're swimming against the stream. And I'm interested in, it's like, how do we learn how to surf that stream? Instead of being tossed underneath it and tumbled and thrown onto shore, like, how do we surf that in a way that we can stay above it and still in
Right.
it?
We're not feeling drowned in it.
Yeah, yeah,
Or what I find for myself is that I put on the outer and I make it through and then I get to the other
mm,
side and it's like, "Oh my god, can I breathe?" Right? There's a reaction in my body that happens. And so being able to be in it, have the head above the surface, surfing it, and so I don't have to go through that after the fact of like, you know, I think about vacations. A lot of people come home from vacation. They're like, I need a vacation for my vacation.
that's right.
And it's the same thing. It's like, I need a holiday for my holiday. So how do we, that's a great question. And I know you all are listening going, great. They're going to have an answer for me.
Yeah, and I think that's part of what we even are about is like, can we ask questions and live in the question without having to figure it out or
Right.
force an answer? That is an also unfamiliar place. It's just holding the question. I'm gonna hold it, and I'm gonna ask that question to those I love to say, what does it mean to be present over the holidays? Like, what would be the most amazing gift? If we could change anything about this holiday season, what would you want? Or what
Mhm.
would you how would you change it? And just ask one questions. I'm not looking for answers. I
Right.
think when we start to ask questions, there's a different part of ourselves that shows up to it. It almost makes us stop that perpetual momentum to say, "Huh, it's a good question. I haven't really thought of that." I mean, I can give you another example because my mom, of course, she's older and she's like, "For God's sake, I'm trying to get rid of stuff. Please don't give me anything.
Right.
I don't need
I
anything. I
know that
don't want."
feeling.
Right. It's like, please don't, please. And so I was thinking about my niece and nephew, and it's oddly enough, my nephew had put something on Facebook about what Christmas meant to him. And it just touched my heart so much. It was about showing up and being present to even the imperfections and totally being able to love and laugh no matter what. And I
Mhm.
just thought it was so beautiful. So I said to my mom, I said, look, what if we got together on the 22nd? And for years, she's an amazing chef and she's an amazing baker. And I swear, she's going to die with those recipes in her if I don't take the time to go over there and do it with her.
Mm.
And so I am consciously making the time this year to go in and be with her. So I said that. I said, well, what if on the 22nd, I'll come over and we'll make some of those, our favorite, the favorite things that I love that she makes for me that I have no idea how she makes. And I'm like, okay, it's about time I show up. And I said, why don't you invite my brother and her grandchildren over? And the elation in her voice, she goes, that
Mm.
would be the best present ever. And she was almost in tears and how touched she was by that we would take time out of our busy lives, quote unquote, to come over and make her a value and our time together. And I think more and more that's what we are seeking as a human being is more healthy, happy, functional times together. And yeah, yeah.
You mentioned the word value, and I really feel like our world has trained us that our value is in what we do, in what we accomplish, in what we provide, in how much money we, it's like all the external values, and we've lost the internal values. We've forgotten, or no one's reminded us that there is value in just being present with the people around us. Like that's the most sacred of the values.
Yeah, like caring does not mean that you have to like just send a check. Caring is actually being with somebody going through a rough time and just being there with them.
Right. And not
Just being
fixing or
present.
figuring
Right.
it, or like nope, just being there with them.
Just being present in the uncomfortability. How much that has made an impact in my life when I've gone through some pretty rough times, and friends that have come over and just literally sat with me while I cried or complained or went on, and that has touched my heart so much more. It's lasted so much longer than any monetary present that I've ever been given. And I mean,
Mm.
I value those too. Those are great too. But I just think that that had such roots to me. Somebody would take time out of their busy life again and just go and be present to me. Like,
Yeah.
wow, what a gift. What a gift.
And we tend to like to play with words on this podcast, or pull them apart and look at them. So a holiday is a holy day. And what, like when we're looking at questions we can ask is, what is holy about our time together, or that I can bring to the table? And I do love the external holy, meaning like what we celebrate in the world, whether you're Christian or Jewish, or, like whatever outer God that you worship. I also am looking at what's holy inside of me.
Yeah, what's sacred?
What's sacred. And
Mhm.
the reason I want to go back to the word holy is that when we look at the bigger picture of the word holy, the more layers of it, it's literally like, think about the holes, right? Then we have a
The
hole in our,
imperfection.
right, exactly. And we've done a podcast about that before. And I think a couple of them, we often think of holiness, like the sacred, as
Mhm.
this perfect, like ideal. And really, it's the places, it's our imperfections. It's the holes in our sweaters. It's the holes in our soul. It's the holes. It's the places that we're open and vulnerable. And
Mhm.
when we talk about presence, a lot of people are like, what does it mean to be present? They don't
Mhm.
even, we don't know what that, we're not trained to understand that. We haven't been taught the skill of presence. And so I think of presence in this holy time of being present to, like, I am imperfect. What are my imperfections? And maybe bringing my imperfections to the table and being like, you know what? It's okay. And you are too. And I love you for your imperfections. Right.
It reminds me of that Leonard Cohen saying that, holes that, the cracks. Sacred are the
Mm,
cracks because that's where the light gets in. But I also think it's where the light gets out too. I
yeah.
think we put ourselves in a box. There's your present. We put ourselves in a box and we're meant to be unwrapped. And
Mm,
we can either be unwrapped through pain and suffering, and or we can be unwrapped with joy and humor of saying, wow, this is exciting. Okay, where the imperfections are, or where the, I'm not so perfect. That actually might be an extraordinary opportunity to explore with
yeah.
joy and possibility.
It brings us to humility and,
Mhm.
humbleness, and a lot of the
Surrender
things,
and
right?
all those.
This goes to the inner values that we just started to talk about, of like, those are the inner values, and those are the things that people will remember, that we will remember, that make things sacred and special.
Yeah.
And, it's like we tend to overlook and say, oh, that's not important. Yeah, that's the most important.
Well, when we try to hide our holiness or our imperfections, right? It's like that's when you just wanna, like, shake somebody and says, "Oh, for God's sake, will you just lighten up a little bit?" Right, instead of when somebody, like, makes a royally faux pas or something like that, and then they go, "Oh my gosh, did I just say that? Or did I just I'm so sorry." Like, it
Yeah.
actually there's a sense of humor, the lightness that happens. It's like, if we can laugh at our holiness, our imperfections, like, how much that actually unites and brings us so much closer to each other, because we're like, oh, it's so much more vulnerable, so much more real. And it gives us permission to not be perfect, because there's no light in being perfect.
No,
There's no lightness either. There's no
no.
light getting in, no light getting out, but there's no lightheartedness either. And if we can laugh at ourselves and make light of someone else's holiness,
Or our
I
own.
think that is really beautiful presence.
So we are about to, we're headed into a new year. And there's a lot of pressure going into a new year to set New Year's resolutions and to do all of the stuff of set your goals. And what I would encourage everyone to think about as you go into this new year is, what would it mean to go into the year with your holiness, with all of your imperfections, and be okay with it, and literally look at it as, that's my sacredness. It's
That's
a
right.
different way of looking at it.
And what's really kind of cool is that this is being released just before Christmas Eve. And in our 12 days of presence, in Christmas Eve, we get to tell the universe what we want. And then we create that holiness, that vacuum for the universe, spirit, the divine, whatever you might put a word to it, to actually fill it for us, so that we can have this conversation. And if you happen to be listening to this in the first week of January, it's okay. You can still go back and do the 12 days of presence. It's okay. There are no mistakes. And I think it's absolutely perfect. Whenever you are unfolding this, it's exactly when you need to hear it, exactly how and what needs to happen for you. So I think, yeah.
And it's the 12 days of presence that we do is a free series. So if you're listening to this at any point in time, you can go to our website, thesoulfulleaderpodcast.com, and, click on the link that says, the 12 days of presence, and get that whole email series. So feel free to do that. You can also find out about our co-creation circle, which then takes information. We do things differently. Imagine that. So we look at our year very differently than most people, and we look at goals very differently than most people, in that we are literally co-creating our lives with life. And we help. It's a different concept for most people. It's funny because I have a walking partner in the mornings, and this morning we were walking, and I said to her, "It's like Stephanie and I did something over the on the solstice, where we took a group of people through a vision board, doing it very differently." And we went through magazines, or we drew what we want for the year, and then we went through and we looked at, what does life want for us for the year? And when I said that to my walking partner, I said, what would life want for you for the year? She went, my brain just glitched. She's like, I don't even know what that means. I have no clue. And I was like, that's great. She's like, that's what? I said, yeah, because you won't have any clue. It's not your rational mind that will ever figure that out. That's the building the skill of presence. Oh, look what we were just talking about.
Right. Creating that space for the future that wants to come and fill that space for you.
Exactly. And then putting that together, those two pieces together into, okay, so here's what I want. Here's what life wants for me. How do those fit together? And that's how we work with stuff. So if you're interested in the co-creation circle, you can, again, click on the link and get more information about that, or contact us directly. We do things differently, and it's very much connecting to your incoming future. And we would love to work with you and help you to do that if that's of interest to you. If your brain goes, I don't know what they just said, and I would like more information, because I've kind of leaned in and gone, that's different. Mm-hmm. It is different.
So even posing that question right now during the holiday season, how would you like to unfold this holiday season differently?
Yeah.
And why? Why would that be important? If it was different, why?
Yeah.
And I think that's what'll get you in touch with your inner presence and your gifts, and you're realizing, hey, there's more to it than just the material consumerism.
There is. And because the holiday season, at least Christmas anyway, is so close to the new year, taking that and applying it to next week And what is it that you would like to unfold for this coming year? And what would life like to unfold for you for this year?
Mm.
Ooh. So stay present to that conversation. And we wish you all a very, very joyous holiday season. If it's already done for you, that's wonderful. I hope it was beautiful. You have lots of questions that you can think about for the rest of the holidays in this coming 2025. Thanks for joining us. We will see you all in 2 weeks on the Soulful Leader podcast.
And that wraps up another episode of the Soulful Leader podcast with your hosts, Stephanie Allen
and Maren Oslack. Thank you for listening. If you'd like to dive deeper, head over to our website at thesoulfulleaderpodcast.com.
Until next time.